Hello everybody and welcome to Commit to Drones. We're going to probably be the most informal presentations that you'll have today, so we'll skip through that and get on to the real stuff about the presentations. Commit to Drones, for those of you that don't know about us, is an organisation that started about 5 years ago and an offshoot from Commit. We started off with 3 people and now we're up to 50 organisations, divided into 3 sections from client base, construction companies and commercial companies. And each one of those has different things, and then we come together to solve advanced drones in the construction and infrastructure sector. So we're growing quite quickly. Today, we've got some great speakers lined up for you. I hope you enjoy it. Like I say, it is really informal. What we'll be doing is 15 minutes presentations, but quickly followed by 5 minutes of questions that we'll have around. And then we'll go into a panel session after these 3 sessions to talk to the steering committee about what the future holds for Commit to Drones, what we're looking to do to move forward and try and get your feedback into that programme. So to start with, we'll have James from Scottish Power, and then we'll introduction from Matt from National Highways, with James talking about digital standards, aerial digital standards. James, thank you. And then we'll have Shell Martin introducing Patrick from Sky, talk about drone in the box. So, James, would you like to come up and we'll start?
Ooh. Equipment as well. Yeah. That's it. Just quick type. That's it. Thank you. Afternoon, everyone. I realise I've got the graveyard slot just after lunch, so I'll throw stuff at you if I see you falling asleep. My name's Jim Wylie. I'm the Senior Aviation Policy Analyst for ScottishPower Renewables. And you're all sitting there thinking, what on earth are you doing here? Hopefully all will become clear. I've been in aviation now for about 30 years. I started off in British Airways, believe it or not, as a reservation agent. I then went flying as cabin crew. Yeah, pushed that trolley. And then I kind of fell into air traffic control, which is what I've been doing for a long, long time. I've managed some of the regional airports up and down the country. And I got into wind farm mitigation strategies and solutions through that. So I'm kind of here to ask a favour in some ways, but I'm also here hopefully to present an opportunity for drones. And again, hopefully it'll all become clear. So the usual social media, all the rest of it. So I want to give you a bit of background about a project that we're doing. So one of the projects we're doing a trial for aviation lighting, an aviation detection lighting system. At one of our wind farms. The background to it, but I've just done my introduction, jumped that. The background to this is one of our wind farms, Carrick, had an objection from Nature Scotland on lighting grounds, on the impact on aviation lighting. The reason being, it's in the buffer zone for the Dark Skies Park in Dumfries and Galloway, as you can see just there. So any aviation lighting is going to have a major impact there. So it's a 13 turbine development, so quite a lot of lights to put in a place like that. We're currently going through the public inquiry with it right now, so I can't say too much about it. But this is one of the key things that we are trying to deal with. So what we've decided to trial, and it's never been done in the UK yet, is aviation detection lighting. Now essentially what you do, and this was an FAA diagram, and it's just illustrated it beautifully. You essentially build a box around the wind farm, and anything flying within that volume of airspace triggers the lights. It's that simple. So they're only on if there's something in the vicinity of the wind farm. The FAA used 3 nautical miles from the boundary of the wind farm and 1,000 feet above. to do that. And that's exactly what we're going to try and adopt in the UK. So we're working very closely with the CAA on this one as well. They're all over this like a rash. So, as I said, it's never been done in the UK. There's two ways of doing it. One is to use non-cooperative surveillance or primary radar. That's your basic radar that just sends out the signal, bounces off the target and comes back. The trouble with that is it means deploying sensors in the field, which is extra planning permissions. There's also spectrum congestion issues because of the frequencies that's using. And there is a zone of silence above the radar. I could bore you senseless with diagrams and everything on that, but I won't do that today for you. So the other one is to use cooperative surveillance. So as some of you know, most commercial aircraft and a lot of drones as well have electronic conspicuity or some form of transponder that sends out a signal. So what we are proposing to do is deploy sensors around the wind farm that will detect these electronic conspicuity signals and use those to trigger the lighting. Trouble is, in uncontrolled airspace, there is no mandate for aircraft to carry transponders or any form of EC. So that's a bit of a problem. There is only frequency congestion if you're sending out interrogation signals, which we are not intending to do. Because it's new, they haven't really explored in the UK the interoperability of these systems, but hopefully this trial will flush some of that out. CA is really keen to look at that. And we still have to put infrared lighting on for people like the military and search and rescue. So that's all been taken into account. So the system, this has been deployed in Germany. This is now mandated in Germany, and this is getting rolled out. So we've actually teamed up with a company called LSS, who have experience of putting this in. The system is very basic. Detects, the sensors detect it, sends it to the controller, sends it back to the wind farm control centre, and activates the lights. The only thing is, and this took me a while to get my head round, it doesn't switch the lights on, it actually switches the lights off. The default setting is the lights are on for safety. So it kind of works in reverse. So when it doesn't detect an aircraft, it switches the lights off. And that took me ages to get my head around that. So purely for safety reasons, the default is the lights are on. So Carrick Wind Farm, which is the driver, the site we're using is an existing wind farm called Mark Hill, just at the southern edge of that. And for those aviation geeks, that's it on an aviation chart, just to see what it looks like. So that circle is roughly 3 nautical miles around it, so that gives you an idea of the area that we're looking at. So what we're going to have to do, and what we're in the process of doing, is applying for a temporary transponder mandatory zone around that area. So we are almost there with it. I'll come back to that in a second. We're almost there with it. There's still a few bits of paperwork to do for the CAA because we're having to do it under what's known as the Airspace Change Process. You'll hear me curse the words CAP 1616, which is the document that is the process. But we're having to jump through those hoops. So there's just a few bits more to tidy off, and then we'll be going live, and I'll give you an update on the timelines. Where it's important for the drone community and the UAVs is the UK Airspace Modernisation Strategy. This was updated in January, January last year, and that's its stated vision. You can go away, have a look at it. It's quite specific in what it's trying to achieve. But one of the big drivers is electronic conspicuity. There's a big push within airspace modernisation for electronic conspicuity. And where that's important for UAVs is it opens up opportunities for an integrated solution. In terms, at the moment, a lot of the solutions for operating UAVs have been on segregated airspace. We need to move away from that. We need to integrate UAV operations into the normal ATC environment. And this opens up a real opportunity. So the new version, under the old version, Initiative 11 of the old version talked about electronic surveillance. Under the new version, it's been incorporated into the new delivery elements. And just to highlight, that's where it appears. So it is embedded into the airspace modernisation strategy now. Like I say, go away and have a wee look at it. It's quite specific in what it's trying to deliver. So what have we done? So Mark Hill, we were up there in November. It was blowing a gale. It was lovely, but beautiful sight. The sensors from LSS are now in place. That was our engineers putting them in. And I think they are now connected and we are starting to collect data. But the only thing we don't have is a TMZ yet. So as we said, we've submitted the airspace change. I've put the reference up if you want to have a look at the CAA Airspace Change portal. I can send you a link if you want it. Have a wee look at it. It's got all the details. What's holding us up is NATS at the moment. We are waiting for radar data from NATS to allow us to do a noise analysis. We are still in contractual negotiations to get that data released. As soon as we have it, we'll get the trial plan completed, submitted to CAA. Said the target date is June. That's slipped to August, and I only found that out on the train on the way down, so I didn't have time to update the slides. And we're going to run the trial for 6 months to collect as much data. So what we need from the UAV community is we need aircraft because there's nothing flies down there. So in order to test the system, we need some targets. So what we are asking is, if anyone wants to come and fly, please do. You'd be more than welcome. So what we're going to do is, once we've got the trial complete, we're going to feed that all back into the CAA. Some of you will have seen the update to the CAP 764 document, which is the wind farm safeguarding document. Most of you won't want to look at it, but there is now a big section on ADLS in that has been incorporated into the new version. So what we're going to do is the results from the trial will help validate that new guidance. So there's a lot of work going on with the CAA. We're also going to start the consultation on a permanent ACP change, a permanent TMZ. And we've had a lot of discussions internally about what area to consider. Do we do it on a wind farm by wind farm basis, or do we do a strategic TMZ across southwest Scotland? We've gone for the strategic. We've gone for the difficult version. We have started the process. That's the ACP. It's on hold at the moment, pending the outcome of the trial. But again, please have a look at it. Don't be scared by the area it covers. It's quite a big area. That'll get trimmed down. So that's where we are at the moment. So anyone's got any questions or anything, or any suggestions, anything, please feed it in via that QR code. Thank you. I couldn't remember the words there. The opportunity here, like I say, is the trial's given us a piece of airspace to look at procedures, processes, standard operating procedures to try and integrate UAVs into the environment, especially if we're going to go down the EC carriage route. So the opportunity is both ways here. We'll get our trial through. The opportunity is for the longer term guidance piece and regulation piece. So the more we can get you guys engaged, the better. And we'd really want to work with you. So we've got 3 minutes left. So any questions at this point, anything else? I know I've rattled through that. It's a lot of information to take in. But hopefully that makes it a little bit clearer what we're trying to do and how hopefully we can work with the UAV community to try and advance both our aims.
Thanks, Jim. That was fantastic.
Okay, I'll hand you back to Tim. Oh no.
So really, this is a great opportunity for our community here to get involved with Scottish Power, not only to test your systems, to bring them along, and you're in a TMZ, as long as you've got obviously the right operating permissions. So really, what we want to push out is this 5 minutes that we've got left here is the questions that you have. What type of systems would you want to test? Because obviously they need safety data, and you get that. If you want to apply to fly in the zone, we'll put that QR code in, bring up a Microsoft form, and fill it in.
Yeah.
So what kind of questions do you got? It's really informal.
There is a little bit of information I can share that's not on the slides that we've been working on in the background. We are talking to another equipment supplier, and we are hoping to deploy, maybe not at Mark Hill. We're looking at either Mark Hill or the much larger Wylie wind farm. But they think they've got a range of sensors that can do this without the need for electronic conspicuity. So again, if we can deploy them, like the UAVs, drones would be perfect for testing the system against small targets.
So for your commercial guys, wind farms are only going to get bigger in the UK. I mean, you've got plans.
To give you an example, the current turbines at Mark Hill are 110 metres. Most of the new deployments for turbines is going to be up to 200, 250 metres. That's onshore. The offshore ones are going to be anything up to 300 metres. These are big beasts. And obviously, especially offshore, we'll be looking at UAVs to support some of the operations offshore as well. So we need to develop these procedures and these methods of operations hand in hand with you guys.
Come on, who's going to
I think we've bamboozled them.
I know we spoke earlier in the day on this, so perhaps you can expand on the benefit there.
Sure.
You were kind of describing that this seems like, to some extent, an interim step of trying to get to that transition of having more aircraft, light aircraft drones that come.
Yes.
In terms of kind of leveraging the bigger problem, how do you see that path towards a unified kind of approach to airspace for all aircraft?
So, yes, you're absolutely right. This is a bit of an interim step. This is a first push on the road to this. So as part of the 1616 process, we had to go through, I'm not allowed to call it consultation, it's a stakeholder engagement process. And we knew we were going to get kicked back off the general aviation community. They have major concerns about the expansion of transponder mandatory zones, especially onshore. For the purposes of what we're trying to do with ADLS, we're only going to activate that at night. So most of the GA arguments fall away at that point. So they were quite content. But they have raised the point, they said, well, the UAV community is going to use this as leverage to try and get this 24/7. We said, that's fine, but that's up to the UAV community to go through the process to do that. However, to go back to what I was saying earlier, tie that back to airspace modernisation, and that's a core push within airspace modernisation is for the EC. So this is a fantastic test as to how that's going to look, and this will give us a glimpse as to how that's going to look when it's rolled out.
It's quite an interesting environment with all the different air flows, isn't it?
Yes, it's because yeah.
Yeah, guys. Any more questions? Come on.
Yeah.
Less of a question. Gareth from Consortic.
Hi there.
We're working on the solar FTZ project.
Ah.
Which is flying medical supplies.
Yeah.
From Portsmouth to the Isle of Wight. We are just going through the ACP process. Ours is
I read yours actually. Yes.
Yeah, we're looking. We're putting in a sensor network to primarily detect traffic. One of our reasons for a TDA is to detect drones and test some of these active sensors. So I don't know, it's worth linking up and share the data. And
Absolutely, because one of the suggestions was that we look at a TDA, but as we said, we don't want to segregate the airspace. We want to integrate the airspace. TDAs is a good way of operating it at the moment, but long term, we need something a lot more flexible and a lot more cooperative, shall we say. I did actually look at yours because it's similar to stuff that's getting done in the Highlands as well, some of those routes. But I think it's from a sensor network, I think the the other guys that we're talking to might be of use to that. In fact, even the LSS guys might be quite good. But yeah, let's catch up on that.
I think we have time for maybe one other question.
I could make an observation. It's
Yep,
really about
fire
drones,
away.
about sailing yachts.
Sorry, you are.
Robert Klaschka, I'm a small measured surveyor. I commission drone stuff for further gravity. But what you're describing, and I'm just quite interested, all the drone guys seem to be very silent in the room. But if you go back 10 years ago in sailing, this thing called AIS, Automatic Identification System, appeared. And before that, I used to sail across the channel, or before I had an AIS transponder and receiver on the boat. You sail across the channel, across the shipping lanes, and you just kept out of the way of the ships. The interesting thing is, once we had a transponder on our boat, even though we were a sailing yacht, so they had no need to stay out of our way, you would find that ships 10 miles out would change course slightly to go ahead of you or behind you. And I mean, it was quite interesting. The frustration generally for sort of longer sailing or further sailing yachtsmen is that AIS isn't mandatory for all boats. Most offshore race fleets now it's mandated so that they can see where the boats are for safety. But I mean, I think you would find that in the yachting community, AIS is now considered a universal good, and that the boats who decide not to put it on themselves, feel a little bit churlish because it's not working for everybody. And
Welcome to aviation.
Very much like
Yeah.
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 Did you come to a general aviation meeting with that, with the balloonists, the gliders?
Yeah.
Very interesting one.
Yeah, there is
It's
a,
like
yeah, it is a human factors kind of thing when you introduce something new like that.
Everybody hates everybody else.
Yeah. I mean,
And everybody hates the jet skis.
so very quickly, just finish off, but there is a bit like that. There is a hierarchy in the rules of the air. Certain things have to get out of certain other things' way. But there going to be that period of adaptation once the EC does become mandated.
That's exactly the point I was making. Is it would appear that hierarchy has sort of organically broken down a little bit because everybody knows where everybody else is.
Yeah, that's a good observation. But anyway, thank you very much for your attention.
We've got about 5 minutes to the stage.
Thank you very much for your attention.